Morning. It's a beautiful day. It is about 9 degrees, so a lot warmer than it has been recently. It's also dry and daylight, so the plan is to crack on and get as much welding done as possible. Quite how far I'll get, I have absolutely no idea, but I'm going to start probably with the Scuttle panels and that rain channel thing I made. Get that done, and then crack on with the battery tray area and finish unpicking that bit I was working on last night and do all the final prep to weld that tray and hopefully get that in too. Yeah, so gonna whip the bonnet off, get the gloves on, get the welder out here and start. Just been preparing the area for welding. I have cleaned off the back of the flanges and put some zinc weld through primer, that one, and then I've cleaned out the rest of that box and put that brushable seam sealer over the inspection plates and anywhere I've welded, including that little bit down there on the front side. Then when that's started to go off, I'm going to dust the whole area with acid etch primer, because when that all gets painted, the paint will just peel off that epoxy, so that'll help eat in a bit, and hopefully any blue sort of overspray when they're painting the top side of this should adhere to the inside of there and not just delaminate. I'm working on the final alignment of that donor scuttle panel. This is critical because if you screw it up, your windscreen won't fit. So yeah, it's important to take steps to get this right. This end I'm happy with because that curve follows nicely there. I know the bulkhead here hasn't moved because it's really thick metal and it's incredibly stiff. Front side I don't care about at this stage because it's thin metal and I can just move it in and out with my hand, and there's nothing that really aligns to it, whereas this is of course critical. So that curve lines up, that curve lines up, I've got those drain holes lining up, and I've got good gaps to weld into, so I'm really happy with this side. The shape across the top is lining up nicely, but over this side I have a slightly funny shape going on, and that's for two reasons. One is this got distorted when I was drilling out the spot welds, and that has closed up a little bit. The other thing is this whole panel was actually bent down and in when the pallets landed on it, so I pulled it up, but it's not quite right. So I'm gonna have to take this back off again and open that curve up a bit and flatten that one down so that it'll sit nicely in there and all line up correctly. So I'm just gonna unclamp that and then dress it, put it back again. Okay, that's now much better. What I did was took it into the vise, held it over the vise, and just sort of bashed the center section flat and hit that flange upwards. It's still not perfect, but I can't really, well, what I'm going to do is clamp it in, tack and weld that side, probably do a plug weld or spot weld here, then put a screwdriver through from there and just push that flange out until the bottom of that curve aligns with that one. The top corner's good, so I might put a tack sort of in here or something, so then when I hit the underside of this bit, it'll just shift it that way. So I'm going to clamp it up, get my welder set up, and then start plug welding. I've started tacking in this side. I've done a short row here, a little bit there, and then this crucial curve, because I don't want any of that to move. And what I'm going to do is, as I'm doing these welds, I'll clean up the area with that wire brush on the end of that drill, because otherwise, say you do a short length and then you come into this bit, you end up involving all the like, I guess they're products of oxidization, like where you've burnt through bits of paint or whatever from the last weld, and that gets in your weld as well and it looks shit and it doesn't weld very nicely. So I'm just going to clean that off as I go. That bit I tacked on underneath is working really nicely, so when I've got more tacks in, I can turn my welder up a bit hotter and burn down onto that. I'm going to do a few tacks like this but on that side, then I'm going to go along with a hammer and tap this flange down onto that one. I might grip it up with the mole grips as well and the clamps, so they're really nice and close together. Then I'll turn the welder up and do some big plug welds. We're at the other side now. That's my set of tacks just to hold that edge straight. I've just hit that bit with a hammer to bend it down so that that curve and that curve lines up. Annoyingly, you've got quite a gap there to make up, and that will want to burn back all the time, so that's going to be a slowly catchy monkey kind of repair. And then this is the bit where I'm going to try and knock that flange up, or not up but along. I have to get something bent and yeah, slide it under there and then hammer it forward. So that's what I've been using, that and the hammer, to just knock that forward. So now it's pretty damn good. So I'll continue doing the tacks. I might try and balance the camera somewhere so you can see plug welds and things. I'm not going to weld any further this way from that point, so it'll just burn out because the heat can't dissipate evenly. It'll get to here and there's no more metal for it to sort of lose heat into. So I'm going to wait for that to cool down and then probably put a tack in that end, and then I can tack back that way and the heat's got metal to dissipate through, so hopefully avoiding burning a hole. I'm also going to get my drill and clean all that up now. This should make for a nicer weld. So that end is now semi-joined. Got a little land bridge there, so that will just stop weld burning out, and then I can sort of fill it in, as it were, and hopefully avoid a big hedgehog on the underside. I'm using this old school GCSE physics lamp, or I don't know, experiment clamp, to try and hold my iPhone. Old school, I know, but it seems to be working. See how hot and orange that bit's got, and yet it didn't actually burn through. And you'll note I'm holding it for quite a long time for thin metal, but that's because I want to be able to sand all of that flat afterwards, and I don't want to sort of leave a void underneath. So all that sits on here is like a rubber trim, so it won't have to be glass flat smooth, but at least that's damn strong now, and I can sand it. It won't crack, flex, break, all the rest of it. Quite hard because I'm on the end of the reach of my welder, because the welder's still the far side of the car. Again, that one wants to be ground flat, so I've put a lot of heat in there. The weld's spread out kind of flat, which is good. And yeah, it should be a quite good weld, that. Happy with that. Just going to shove a tack in there. Right, so that end's done in terms of little tack weld things. It all aligns nicely. I'm happy with the other end as well. So I'm going to go along now with a hammer and just tap all of these spot weld ports down flush, ready so that I can go along with the welder turned up and weld it down properly. So yeah, a bit of hammering and then again with the wire brush to make it all nice and neat before I then do some plug welds. Okay, you might have worked out I'm a fan of real world restorations and videos and stuff. So I'm showing you the plug welds. What I find, first off, I've gone along there with my wire brush thing to clean out all the shit and paint and stuff. I've tapped it down, but there's always going to be some that sit closer. Like when you plug weld, you want the two panels as close together as possible. Some sit down better than others, and I find do the ones that are sitting down first, and then as they have been or the metal's been joined together there, you can tap down the other ones because the whole assembly gets stiffer. So you join it where it touches already, then beat it down till it joins somewhere else, then do those ones, and then keep going until you've finished. That one there, where is it? That one is my first candidate for plug welding. It's always a bit of a gamble for me when I first start doing a plug weld because I don't really know exactly how to set the welder up. So I've cranked it up a bit, and this could be a spitty, farty, horrible thing, or it could go quite well. We'll just wait and see. First challenge, get the camera in view. I think that's about right. So what I'm hoping to do is get my filament wire of my MIG welder to touch down on the back panel and then slowly fill up that pool until the weld is all red and sits nice and flat. That way I know I've got lots of heat and it's actually melted into the metal below and not sort of just filled up a pool in this. I shall try and do that now. I was also trying not set fire to the cart. Right, I'm happy with the settings of the welder because that one went quite nicely. And the reason it went quite nicely is because of this. And I don't know whether you're going to be able to see it. I can see on the underside of there, I've got a nice pool of weld where it's actually come through. So I know that I've definitely picked up on that panel beneath. When I first started doing this, I'd have the welder set quite low and thinking I was doing really nice plug welds, but actually if you put a chisel in between the two flanges and hit it, it would just fracture apart, and that's because I hadn't got enough heat into the panel below. So now that one's done, I'm going to tap at these two and maybe do one over there, and then just keep following that process. I might get the hose out because that did actually start to catch fire, but if you look, I've got a nice filled in puddle, good heat around it, and I know I can nip that off flat and it'll be nice and strong and everything's aligned. So yeah, it's pretty boring because it's exactly the same as that but multiple times. So I'll do all along here, then I'll probably do these corners and I'll bend that down into shape or push that flange forwards and backwards until the gutter lines up, and just carry on doing that until it's done. I'm going to make an effort to show this because I think it is worth seeing. Brought another torch out, so hopefully it'll show it up. Can you see that metal dangling down underneath? That's actually a molten pool of metal that's kind of dropping through. So I'm actually going to turn my welder down a little bit, or keep it at the same heat but just, you know, pulse it, or not allow the arc to build up to the point where it's actually going full molten. So it's good for penetration, it's good for heat and to get a good weld, but it's not good if you don't want to set fire to your car or have sort of errant dangly bits of metal poking out the underside of your panels. Probably about halfway through now. I've done from middle up to here. I turn the welder back down to do that bit, then turn it back up again to do these ones, and since I've done that, the weld settings have changed and it's spitting and farting and doing a horrible weld, so I'll have a further play. But yeah, I decided not to do those ones there yet. I'm gonna put the welder on the other side so I can actually get to them, and then I'll probably do this bit first now, carry it along there, then move the welder and weld back to here. Yep, it's quite a slow process, but needs to be done. Got really bored of welding for the moment anyway, so I thought I would start prepping my bit of DIY gutter trim. I've trimmed it to length. I basically offered it up and one end fitted better than the other, so I chopped off the end that didn't fit very well. I have got to go inside now, drill all the holes for the plug welds. What I'll also do is trim that flange down. I'll leave it high at the ends just so that it's easier to weld in, but chop the middle down to the correct height. The profile isn't perfect, as I've pointed out before, but I'm going to concentrate on getting the front face right, which might sound daft because that's the more complicated shape, but most of that gets hidden by the rubber seal, whereas this just stands up as like a rain gutter, which you see when the bonnet's up. So the front side you will see, the rear side you won't. So if I'm going to make either side fit, it will pay to make the front side look better. So I'm going to mark out some plug weld holes, centre pop them, take them inside, drill them, finish prepping it. I've drilled the plug weld holes, offered it up to the car. Also had another change of plan. I was going to cut down this return before I put it on the car, but I decided that it'll look better if I can get my meter rule, and when this is welded in the right place, I'll offer it up and then scribe a line and then cut off clean, and it should look nice rather than me doing it inside and then beating it into shape, and that might cause it to distort and go up and down. So what off the car might look like a straight edge, when it's on the car might not necessarily stay straight. So if I weld it on the car long and then cut it off, it's guaranteed to be straight and look nice. What I've done is just put a tack in the middle of the tray at the bottom, both ends, and then I'm going to beat and reshape both of these edges, hopefully without breaking my tack, until that's a nice shape, and then I'll tack it. Same the other end, then I'll do a couple of plug welds and, you know, blah blah blah, weld it all in. So I probably won't bother recording all the individual steps because it's boring and you'll just be listening to me talk and do stuff. So I'll just from now on kind of show you shots of interesting things. So that's what it looks like after a few tacks and some hammering. The profile's really nice and it's going to look like better than I thought it would do. So I'm really chuffed with that because I don't usually fabricate actual bits. I either chop them out of other cars or make simple repair sections. So yeah, although it's just straight lines, there was a bit of work to it, so I'm happy with that. Alright, happy with that. That welded lovely. I think having that fresh new steel on the top side really made a difference. That's 99% welded in. Obviously there's going to be a few pinholes or bits I need to fill in. I need to move the welder so I can do those ones nicely. Then I'll trim this off and finish welding the transition areas. I'll also grind all this down and dress it and, you know, all that palaver. Really annoyingly, it started to get windy. I mean, it ain't blowing a gale, but it's enough to affect the welds, and it's spitting with rain. So I'm going to go in, make a coffee, cover this up, come back out, and then crack on. All the welding is finished. Chopped off that front edge, ground down all the welds. It's looking really nice, and if you remember, this is, you know, quite obviously an area that was really badly rusted, so it's nice to have all of that in, done, repaired. I'm just going over it now with some sandpaper on that sanding disc thing, so that I can give it a rough key and then just shoot some etch primer on it. That'll do two things. One is just prevent anything from flash rusting, and two is hopefully make it look awesome. Even if it's just a temporary blow over, it'll all make it look kind of one colour, and just makes me, I don't know, happy that it's all, you know, looking like progress really. So I'm going to do that now. Ta-da! Well, that's a bit of a mojo boost. If you remember back to the first videos, we had holes in here, big holes all the way around there. All of that bit was missing. Quite a lot of this had gone. We had big hole where the clutch master cylinder goes. We had a big hole in the bulkhead over there. And now we have largely rust-free scuttle area. There's still a bit, I think, in there and up the top, but I'll do them later. Kind of done with that area for today, and I'm going to start on this bit, or not start, continue with that bit, because the bits up there I think I can do at night time, whereas this is all a daytime job. So yeah, gonna go and have a cup of tea now. I think it's about 1 o'clock, and I've been here since about 10, so it just shows how long doing repairs like that take. It's not just the welding, it's the prep and it's the grinding down afterwards, and after a while it starts to become a real ball ache. So moving around between different jobs kind of breaks up the monotony a bit. I'm working on the battery tray area again. I've cleaned up around that bit, and now I'm going to make a patch to go in there. I kept the bit I chopped out, so I'm just going to draw around it and then chop it out of the 0.9mm Zintex sheet steel. The top you'll see, because the battery tray will sit about here. All of this bit, and actually that bit as well, you won't see, so I might make the panel fit tight in there, but then be oversized here, because it's easier to weld it when it's oversized. But that bit I can then grind smooth and make it sit flush. A jiffy later, that is my plate to go in there. So it sits on that inner wing at the back, flush to the top, and then oversized at the bottom. I've brought my airline out, and I'm going to get the die grinder and just explore this bit, get rid of the rust. When I'm back to good metal, I'll make a patch for that. Then I'll have the welder out and I'll do both jobs at the same time. Start the die grinder in there, just munched away. It's surprisingly solid actually. That's my little patch made. I'm gonna hold that in with a magnet and then just tack it. Then there'll be enough room to go around with the welder. I don't want, yeah, it's got to be good enough to be sanded flat, but I don't want lots of hedgehogs, like bits of MIG wire poking out the bottom, because the battery tray needs to sit flush against the underside so I can plug weld onto it. So it'll have to be quite a neat repair, that. And then I'll shove that one in the side afterwards. That bit's done. When you put your hand underneath, it's nice and smooth, so the battery tray should butt up nicely. And I've just used some magnets to hold that bit in place. So it's going to be, what is it, a butt weld at the top and down that right side, and then the other bit is going to be just sort of sitting on top and a seam weld. It's not the neatest welding I've ever done, but it's in there, it's solid. Top side's reasonably flat, so with a skimmer filler it'll be okay. bottom's a bit lumpier, but again, it's all going to be on the underside of the battery tray, so you won't see it. I'm now going to finish off by picking out the bit that I couldn't get to last night. I might have to get some, massive grips on it and just tear it out, or I might be able to get in there with a hacksaw blade. I don't know, I'll have a play. Well, that's taken ages, but finally got the remains of the old battery tray off. I cut out more than I anticipated, but it's quite therapeutic because all the rusty frilly metal's gone. Got really nice chassis rail there, nice bright metal on the flanges, still the original remains of wax oil inside, so that means the whole chassis rail's good. Picked it all apart. I just need to clean up the rest of that flange, and then I can offer up my new battery tray and slide it in there and see how it fits. Just trying to get the new battery tray into position. One slight problem, which might turn into a big problem, just getting the thing in there, because this top corner needs to be on that side, but it's too big. Obviously I don't want to have to cut that off, so that's the whole point of doing it this way, is to make it a nice neat repair. But equally it has to come in from the back. I can't just put it in from this side because it's massively too big. So it looks nice, but I've got some head scratching to do to actually get that in position properly. After much head scratching, I just hit it with a hammer, so it's in there. I'm now trying to work out exactly what I'm going to do in this area, because this would have been plug welded onto that. That's frillier than I would like, so I might have to chop a bit out here, make an invisible repair, and then that can go in. The only problem is if I do that, this will never go in because it will be too long to fit through the hole. So I'm wondering if I can do it from the back side afterwards, which is going to be pretty difficult. The rest of it looks really good though. Really pleased with it. It's a much better repair than I would have done otherwise. That's that reinforcer, which I'll just, once this is in, I can just seam weld along there. I can do all my plug welds, they're easy. Yeah, gonna mark up where I need to pre-drill holes in this, and then try and get it out. I'm continuing the head scratching. This is a pain. That's the bit I made the other day, and that's gonna fit and work. Of course, that is only one part of the wheel well. The rest of it was a mess, so I chopped it out. I think there's no other way to do this other than as a patchwork, because the key bits to get right are from the engine bay side, making that battery tray look as neat as possible. So I'm going to concentrate on that first, get that done, then all of this can actually go in from behind, from the wheel arch side, and it's all going to be hidden. So although it's a patchwork, and I hate doing patchworks, I've got to be realistic. It's a 400 quid heap of shit car that was going to go in the scrap bin,